Chapter 2. Internal Transformation of the City of Rome and of the Western Empire. Part 1. The Emperor Honorius in Rome, 403. The Emperor Theodosius, when dying, had left the empire to be divided between his two sons, with the injunction that each should consider himself full heir to all that concerned his devotion to the Church and his wholehearted zeal for the Christian religion. "It is this religion," were his exact words, according to Theodoret, "which maintains peace and quiet within the state, makes wars to cease, and enables a united country to vanquish all its enemies." During their reign, Honorius and Arcadius, on the whole, strove to adhere to their great father's precepts, though their measures against the lingering influence of paganism were not free from mistakes. Sometimes misplaced zeal, sometimes indifference, led them to allow evils to continue which could only be removed from the body politic by the exercise of ceaseless effort and considerable tact. In the 5th century, indeed, idolatry steadily, though certainly very unwillingly, ceased to form any recognized part of either public or private life. The temples, detested as they were by the bulk of the people, gradually gave up all hope of being reopened. The beautiful statues of the gods no longer relied upon returning to their incense-clouded shrines. Such was the outward state of things. But the conquest of paganism in daily life was the real task of the day, and one of gigantic importance. The colossal empire, only superficially converted, long resisted complete reform. The transforming power of the new religion was also far from developed. In fact, the Church as yet had only begun her work, when suddenly barbarian hordes swarmed over the Roman state and seemed ready to engulf both classical and Christian culture in their headlong course. Two circumstances, however, seemed to hold out firm hope of ultimate success for the efforts Christianity was making to elevate the whole social body, so far, of course, as outward invasion permitted. One was the uniform progress, the marvelous harmony in both principle and practice, which was observable wherever Christian congregations and bishops were found, from the provinces of Spain to the remote Caucasus, from the African deserts to the Danube, the Rhine, and even to Britain. Only a higher, superhuman principle could be at work in such a mighty union. The Roman Empire, with all its power of multiform concentration, never, even in thought, approached such perfect unity. No philosopher of antiquity ever imagined the possibility of such harmony, both in doctrine and in practical aims. The other hopeful sign consisted in the growing concord between the new religion and the rulers of the Christian state, independent of Roman power, nay, actually in opposition to it, and in spite of its sanguinary decrees. Christianity had established itself all over the vast empire. But the time had now come when Christianity and society at large could mutually rejoice over a sympathetic alliance between religious and mundane forces, and this alliance promised to be of incalculable advantage to both. Benefit accrued to the empire from the fact that new and potent restorative elements were being practically poured into her lifeblood. The Christian emperor's legislation bears witness to this point, particularly during the 5th century, which at present concerns us. In many ways, the public authorities gave proof of real effort to establish social life on Christian principles. They tried, on their side, to combat certain lingering relics of vanishing paganism. In this they were supported by the guidance and prudence of far-sighted churchmen, who took care that haste should not become hurry, and that the measures taken should reach the right places and attain the desired effect. For instance, what excellent rules for daily public conduct are given by the Christian father of Hippo. Efforts must be directed towards breaking down idols in the hearts of the heathen, but we must not violently destroy objects of their reverence. When we have won over our opponents to Christian sentiments, they will of themselves invite us to such destruction, or else carry it out with their own hands. Let us pray for them, but never act angrily against them. For those who need excitement, there are plenty of other subjects ready for their wrath. Look how many Christians are still half heathen. They have joined us with their bodies, but never with their heart and soul. The Church, on her side, recognized with joy and thankfulness that it was an immense relief when state legislation supported her educational efforts and her work of social regeneration. On March 23, 395, an edict of the Emperor Honorius confirmed all privileges accorded by his predecessors to the Christian religion. He ordered all government officials to protect those who professed it, and stated that, during his lifetime, reverence for the Church should suffer no diminution, but rather be increased. As a ruler, Honorius holds no prominent rank. He was completely overshadowed by his father. It was his evil fate to assume the reins of power too young. He was thus forced to rely upon counselors and generals whose selfish ambitions outbalanced his slight experience and feeble will. Procopius describes him, not without reason, as vacillating and mentally short-sighted. Some of his ecclesiastical contemporaries certainly speak of his intellect and character with great respect, but this can be easily explained as gratitude towards a powerful patron. Subsequent events prove that precisely during the lifetime of Honorius, the Western Empire had need of a far more energetic and resolute man at its head, in order to stem the frightful incursions of the Germanic races. Towards the end of the 4th century, the valiant Goth, Alaric, that name fatal for Rome and Italy, began to be heard of outside of his own nation. He led his countrymen through Illyricum, Macedonia, and Thessaly, devastating the territory as he passed. Then he crashed forward into the heart of Greece and laid proud Athens low. Greek civilization closed amid the clash of Gothic arms. Eleusis was wrecked, and throughout later history no further syllable is heard of its mysteries. In 394, the Olympian Games had been celebrated for the last time, and the famous Temple of Olympia itself was shortly after turned into a Christian church, the same happening to that heart of Hellas, the Parthenon at Athens. Sparta, Argos, Corinth, and 100 other training schools for war, statecraft, science, and culture fell, almost without a blow, before the terrible Goths. It was the triumphant progress of barbarism over the birthplace of Greek gods and Greek art, a triumph of which the tragic character is almost without parallel in history. Thanks to Stilicho and his army, the leader of those northern hordes was, for a time, restrained from fighting and plundering in western provinces. Alaric agreed to enter into an alliance with the emperor, and he was named commander-in-chief in eastern Illyricum. Soon, however, an irresistible force drew him and his ever-victorious troops into Italy and against Rome. Alaric made his way through Pannonia to the Julian Alps, and in the spring 403 arrived on Italian soil, full of the wildest plans. But for Stilicho's decision and skill, Honorius's rule in Italy would have then been at once at an end. But the 2 sanguinary battles fought against the Gothic king by Stilicho at Pollentia and later at Verona saved the country. The emperor had fled from Milan to Ravenna, which was much more strongly fortified, but these battles enabled him to return. They also secured a delay of 7 years for Rome before her first capture by the barbarian race. The Battle of Pollentia took place on Easter Day, and it seems that the earliest known Roman missal or sacramentary, which at Eastertide gives thanks to God for relief from threatened invasion, refers to the Easter rejoicings over that victory. The leading poet of Christian Rome, Prudentius, lost no time in pointing out to the Emperor Honorius that it certainly had not been the heathen gods nor the ancient faith which had helped him to victory. The empire could justly feel proud, he tells him, that the Christian religion had given force to his arms. Prudentius adds his own conviction and that of his contemporaries, that Christianity never deadens, but rather quickens patriotism as well as military and political energy. He continues in striking language. It was for the fatherland that each soldier sought to win, and dauntless, faced the path to wounds and death. The poet urges the emperor to establish the state on the sole durable foundation, and then invites him to come to golden Rome in his triumphal car, laden with spoils of victory and guided by Christ himself. This was the Romans' one desire. Since Milan had become the court residence, Rome felt herself too little in touch with the head of the empire. Ever since Constantinople had been made the chief political center, Rome had suffered both in dignity and material importance. Now that Milan seemed daily growing a most dangerous second rival, the city demanded at least to celebrate her ruler's triumph as usual, hoping also to be again recognized as the metropolis. The Emperor Honorius came to Rome, the victor Stilicho at his side, but this was to be the last triumphal progress of a Roman ruler through the Eternal City. In December 403, he was joyfully received at the Milvian Bridge. To quote the language of the contemporary inscriptions, all the city corporations, and above all, the clergy acclaimed the invincible and most fortunate Lord, the gentle and eternal Emperor, victorious and triumphant. All the city was gaily decked with banners, wreaths, and hangings. Honorius would not allow the Senate to precede his chariot on foot, as formerly. Otherwise, most likely, the triumphal procession passed, as in early imperial times, down the Via Sacra to the Capitol with traditional pomp. Only the animals for sacrifice, the heathen priests, and the offerings to the gods were wanting. Moreover, if Augustine could write generally of the visits of the emperors to Rome, directly the emperors enter this city, they visit the tomb of St. Peter, the lowly fisherman, whom heaven now wills to honor above all departed rulers. We may conclude that his contemporary, Honorius, did not neglect this custom on such a solemn occasion. Claudian, the heathen author, who alone has described these events, gives us, with more verbosity than facts, a picture of jubilant crowds massed in the streets and on the housetops, nor does he omit to congratulate the emperor in the name of all the bronze and marble gods still standing in the Forum, the lofty golden temple, and above all, the sacred shrine of Jupiter Tonans on the Capitol, are brought in as background to the poet's sonorous description. The poem was dedicated to the emperor when entering upon his 6th consulship. It would really seem as if he wanted to show Honorius and his court how far the productions of the pagan schools were inferior in intellectual force and fire to Christian poetry, as represented by Prudentius.